artha, your wealth in this world. This is how the sequence goes a little wonky, or upside down. It's meant to be the opposite. It's meant to be that you're in a general sense, everything's actually geared towards moksha. So your duty, your dharma, your duty, your wealth, artha, and kam, your desire also, it should all be regulated in line with supporting your spiritual culture, not the other way around. Not that spiritual practices, or so-called spiritual practices, should be used for the sake of enhancing your material existence. Rather, it must be the other way around. In this world, a person whose work does not lead him to virtue, whose virtue upon becoming desireless does not bear the fruit of his detachment from all things non-Krishna, and again whose abnegation does not culminate in the service of Tirthapad Sri Hari. And then this is another point, that one may get to the point of detachment from all these things, but if that detachment does not have a positive connection with the service of the Lord, then that is also useless. And this is a very famous verse on this point from Srimad Bhagavatam. Naishkarmyam apyachuta bhava varjitam nashobhate jnanam alam niranjanam kutapuna shashvara bhajam ishvare nacharpitam karma yad apyakaranam. Knowledge or liberation in Brahman that denies love for the infallible or devotion for Sri Krishna, that liberation is not glorious, even if it is spotless or free from all material coloration. Why? Because the variegatedness of divine pastimes is absent. Then how can worldly work, karma, which is by its very nature inauspicious, ever be glorious when it is not offered to the Lord, even when it is selfless? So it's very nice, this expression, because normally, the attainment of knowledge, or what's actually being said here is naishkarmya. Naishkarmya means reaching a state of being free from karma. And this is something that is celebrated in Gita. This is the goal of karma yoga, jnana yoga, to get to a point where you're able to engage in the world, but because you're free from personal desire, because you're free from selfish motivation, then your activity is not binding you. So you're eating, sleeping, working, whatever it is, performing all your duties, but because you're doing it all with the mood of selflessness, then you're not incurring any karma, you're not incurring any reaction for your activity. So this is a very high stage to reach, generally speaking, to be free from karma. So this is something that's generally celebrated within the scriptures, including parts of Bhagavad Gita. But here, Bhagavatam is on a higher level, right? Higher notch instruction in Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam is saying that even naishkarmya, to be in that state where you're free from karma, this is not beautiful. Nashobhate. This is not a beautiful thing. In other words, it's ugly. If achuta bhava varjitam, if there's no connection with the Lord, achuta, if there's no connection with Krishna there, then to be in this state of complete detachment, of complete freedom of karma, this is meaningless. This is not beautiful. This is ugly if there's no connection with the Lord. There must be a positive side. And so then the verse goes on to say, so then what to speak of karma, of ordinary worldly activity, which is reactionary and undesirable, in a much more obvious way. So if even to be free from karma, if that's an undesirable thing, then of course ordinary karma in the world, that is undesirable. The point is that there must be the positive connection of the Lord and his devotion in order for something to be meaningful and valuable and desirable. There's something in parentheses here. I don't know who added it, but I'll read it. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote, "Karma depends on the material body, and its fruits are also mundane. Therefore, karma is most inauspicious for the spiritual soul. Even if that karma becomes desireless or selfless, it cannot directly yield any spiritual fruit. Still, if one's work yields bhakti or devotion, only then does work being offered to the Lord become unblemished and the indirect yielder of an auspicious result. Even jnana or enlightenment or liberation in pure spirit is not perfect. At times it is rather completely injurious or opposed to real progress. Only when liberation is a servant of devotion, which is full of divine variegatedness, does it succeed in becoming one with or merging with devotion." Close parentheses. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings begin from this point. Jnane prayasha mudapasya namante eva jivanti sanmukaditam bhavadiyavartam stane stita shutigatam tanuvan manobir ye prajaso jitajito piyasitais trilokyam. Lord Brahma said to the Supreme Lord, "O Lord, completely shunning the attempt for enlightenment by meditating on the non-differentiative Brahman, those devotees who hear the talks about you that flow from the mouths of the sadhus and pass their lives remaining by thought, word, and deed on the path of the sadhus, they attain you, O Lord, who are practically impossible to reach in the entire universe." That is life. Actual transcendental life starts from that point. The tendency of jnana is also being thrown out. The surrendered soul lives with the sadhu who is glorifying Krishna. That is the primary lesson for taking the jiva soul upwards. That is the primary lesson of bhakti. Real ananya bhakti, exclusive devotion, begins here. And Mahaprabhu said, "Yes, but you proceed. No doubt here is real devotion, but proceed, don't stop here." In that way, one by one, Ramananda Rai elucidated the stages of rasa, or divine serving levels. And lastly, the bhakti yoga and parakya ras, divine consorthood and paramour sentiment, that was shown by Mahaprabhu as the most elevated. Still, although it may be very high, it is our own property. We can have it. The question always arises here, can we achieve it or not? But we can. In this world we say, he is my son, she is my wife, he is my husband, etc. But after a few years I must see that my husband, etc. has gone. Husband means this body. But I've never seen who was inside. I never saw him either before or after. That is the problem, but we are very attached. We are crying, crying, crying. Sometimes crying and crying, we leave our body also. Then the position is very insecure for the jiva soul. But by his bad karma, he is suffering like this. Seeing this, Krishna himself becomes very sad, and so he sometimes sends the sadhu, the guru, and he also descends as an avatar. And also Swayam Bhagavan, or the Lord in person, comes and reveals his pastimes. In many ways he tries, but he doesn't want to disturb their freedom. If you can freely and spontaneously render seva, devotional service, that is genuine seva. He can influence us very easily, but he does not want to do that. He wants you to eagerly, with your full devotion, try to serve his associates and his lotus feet. That is your super benefit, and he does not want to disturb that. But he can advise through Shastra or scriptures, through the Vaishnava and through the Guru. He teaches us in many ways and circumstances, sometimes taking the form of a fish as Matsya avatar, or a tortoise as Kurma avatar, and so many other avatars. There are 10 main avatars listed in the scriptures, and others also. But all his advices and directions lead to Rome, in the sense that he does everything for our super benefit by showing that path to the service world. And that is necessary. Only through service can we go there. Otherwise, we have no possibility to touch that plane. Natad basayate suryo nasha shankona pavaka yadgatva na nivartante taddama paramamama. That place, having attained which the surrendered souls never return from again, that is my supreme, all-illuminating abode. Neither sun, moon, nor fire can illuminate it. This sun, this moon, nothing in this world can supersede or touch that plane. In the middle portion, there is the vast Viraja river. But if you plant the seed of devotion very nicely, the Bhakti Lata creeper or vine of devotion can cross over Maya Loka, or the illusory environment, cross over the Vaitarani, and also the Viraja. Upajiya Bade Lata Brahmanda Bedi Jai, Viraja Brahmalok Bedi Parvyam Pai, Tabe Jai Tarupadi Goloka Vrindavan, Krishna Charang Kalpa Vikshe, Kore Aroham. So this verse is part of Mahaprabhu's instructions to Srila Rupa Goswami and Chaitanya Charitamrita, beginning with that famous verse, Brahmanda Brahmiche, Brahmanda Brahmite Kon Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Beach, which everybody knows, describing how the fortunate soul, wandering and wandering throughout the universe, getting some fortune, they receive that Bhakti Lata Beach, that seed of the creeper of devotion, by the grace of Guru and Krishna. And then in the following verses it describes how Mali Hoya Se Bij Kore Aropan Shravan Kirtan Jale Kore Arohan, how then that receiving that seed, that soul becomes a gardener, a Mali, a gardener, and they have to take care of that seed, watering it with the waters of Shravan and Kirtan, and keeping the weeds out, and etc., etc. And then if that seed is taken care of properly, then it sprouts into a creeper. And so these verses that Gurudev is quoting here, they're describing how that creeper, and of course this is like an analogy, it's a very nice analogy, how that creeper, it will pierce through all the different layers of the universe. So Brahmanda, referring to the material plane. And remember, this all means, these are all planes of consciousness. So for that creeper to pierce through the spirit, the material universe, that means that our faith becomes so strong that we are utterly, indifferent to all the different attractions, all the different proposals that this world has to offer. That our faith is so strong that we have zero attraction to all these things. We've transcended whatever, mind, the pull of the minds, the body, the senses, all the things of this, corresponding things of this world that are pleasing, these aspects of our material selves. Our faith will be so strong as to be able to transcend all of these things, and in that sense, pierce through the mundane universe. And then Viraja is the causal ocean, part of the buffer zone between the material and the spiritual plane. Then Brahmalok, that marginal area of non-differentiated consciousness. And then Paravyom, the reaching Vaikuntha, the spiritual sky, and all the different layers are there. And then, of course, at the highest, the sweetest, Goloka Vrindavan. So, if that creeper is being taken care of properly, then it will be able to pierce through all these different layers and reach Zion, reach the promised land of Goloka Vrindavan. Devotee. Vaitarani and Viraja are the same. So these are two rivers. Viraja is another name for the causal ocean that Mahavishnu floats in. And there's another river Gurudev mentioned called Vaitarani. So someone's asking, what is that? Srila Govinda Maharaj, no, Vaitarani is before Viraja. We have seen in Puri, there is also a river called Vaitarani representing that. It is described as being like a moat surrounding Svargaloka, heaven. The whole Brahmanda, or universe, is floating in Viraja. Above the seven, because remember, what is the Viraja? It's the causal ocean in which Mahavishnu is floating. And from all of his pores, all of these universes are coming out. And so they're all floating in this Viraja ocean that Mahavishnu is also floating in. Above are the seven planes, Bur, Bhuvar, Swar, Maha, Jana, Tapa, and Satyalokas. And below are the seven planes called Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Tala, Tala, Mahatala, Rasatala, and Patala. Total 14. That is one Brahmanda. And millions, so this whole, 14 different zones, this is all like one Brahmanda. So now scientists have this new phrase, a multiverse, not a universe, but a multiverse. So we're talking about not just one, we could think of one Brahmanda as a multiverse. And so there's billions, and maybe that's not even enough. But let's just keep it simple. Say one Brahmanda. Now I've been trying to think of a good way to translate Brahmanda, because universe is not the right word. We can say a multiverse. I think that's the word that they use. They have another word that they're using. Scientists are starting to figure out, there's a lot more going on than they previously thought. All they had to do was, look at the Vedas. Everything is described there very well. So one Brahmanda is like one multiverse, in huge area of existence in which there are many, many universe. There's these 14 different planetary systems that are existing. So that's one Brahmanda in which those 14 different planetary systems are. So that's one Brahmanda, and millions of such Brahmandas are floating. So not only is there one, we can tell this to the scientists, there's not only one it's not only that there's a multiverse, not just a universe, but there's millions of multiverses, there's billions of multiverses. Try and get your head around that. You can. And the Bhakti Lata Bij, or creeper of devotion has the strength to cross over that viraja. But when the creeper of our devotion is young and tender like a child, at that time we must protect her. Yadi Vaishnavaparad utte hati mata, upadeva chindetar shuki jai pata. If offense to the Vaishnavaparad occurs, the mad elephant uproots and breaks the creeper, and its leaves dry up. So this is the famous analogy that Mahaprabhu gives in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that you have some wild animal. You've planted your seed very nicely, and the creeper is starting to sprout. But then there's some wild animal that comes and doesn't just like harm the creeper or stunt its growth, but actually can uproot and totally destroy the whole thing. So that is representative of the power of offense to the Vaishnavaparad. And so that is the real danger that we face in our spiritual life, to foster that critical and offensive mentality towards the devotees. This is the greatest difficulty. If one commits Vaishnavaparad, his creeper of devotion will be uprooted as though by a mad elephant. And Srila Jiva Goswami has mentioned in his Bhakti Sandarbha, Sarva aparada kridapi ityad ukjanusadena namaparada yuktasya bhagavad bhakti mato pyada pata lakshana bhoga niyamacha. In general, there are 10 kinds of offenses to the holy name, headed by sadhu ninda, or offense to the sadhu. Then to disbelieve in the transcendental name, quality, form, and pastimes of the Lord, and consider the demigods like Shiva to be equal to Krishna. Then to offend the Guru, the scriptures, and so on. So even if one may be a very high Vaishnav, his creeper of devotion will be destroyed, and even he will go down if he offends another Vaishnav. So we must try to avoid Vaishnavaparad, and then we can succeed with everything else in our spiritual life. For our real goal, we must cross over Viraja. At present, our universe is actually floating in Viraja, but beyond Viraja and Brahman also is Paravyom, or the spiritual world. Yeah, it's a very strong point Gurudev is making. Even if one can actually reach the Mahabhagavat level. One can actually be advanced in devotion, but they are still at risk. And if they commit Vaishnavaparad, they can also lose that position. They can fall from that position. Even if they're offensive to Vaishnavas who are junior to them. We've heard examples of that. Gurudev mentioned once about one very prominent disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who, beautiful Srila Gurudev. Srila Gurudev, he mentioned once about one very prominent disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, how he, and it was very, this was in a recording that I saw of Srila Gurudev, and it was very humorous the way he said it, because Gurudev was in Italy, and this was his first visit to Italy, 1999, and he was staying in a castle there, Narni Castle, and so he said this in a really funny way. He said, so-and-so fell down from the castle because he was rough with his godbrothers. He said like that, talking about this disciple of Saraswati Thakur. He fell down from the castle. Gurudev was always very humorous in the way that he would say. He had transcendental sense of humor, transcendental humorist. So he said he fell down from the castle because he was rough with his godbrothers. He was and it was interesting, because it didn't start, and this, I don't know if I can't remember if I already said it, but this disciple, he deviated, like in terms of the teachings, and he came up with a hodgepodge version of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and it was a very sad thing. But it was interesting, Gurudev's point, because he was saying that it started out like in kind of apparently an innocent way. It wasn't like he was really criticizing, very offensive. But he said it started out with like joking, in kind of like a mean way, but like joking, like with some superior mood, like he said that's how it started. And then it became more serious. We always hear that example, like if you're following a line and you just deviate a little bit, if you keep going, then you're deviating more and more, So in the same way, these tendencies, to criticize others or to demean them, diminish them in some way, they can start out in a very, apparently innocent way, but if you're not watching that, it can grow into something more, So Srila Maharaj would use that expression, nip it in the bud, nip it in the bud, once that poison is starting, cut it immediately before it becomes strong, So we have to be, it's a scary thing, if we're not practicing in a conscious way, in a very attentive way, then, before we know it, we can be way in, left field somewhere, So, yeah, it's so important. That was one point that I felt Gurudev was making to us, like one of his themes, just be conscious, be awake, There was this really beautiful expression he made once, saying, we must be conscious about from where we have come, where we are going, and where we are right now. We must be conscious. We don't just want to continue in a blind way, but we want to be awake and really think, how are we making progress? What are our goals? By goals, we don't mean checking off some agenda to get this and get that, but in terms of our inner growth, what type of goals do we have, and how much, how pure is our intention, and how much are we really sincerely and earnestly trying for that. So we need to be awake and conscious day by day, moment by moment if possible, second by second. So that was the end of chapter 6, going deeper. And then chapter 7. Okay, well maybe we'll stop there. Jai Shri Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami.